let me introduce from the University of New Mexico, Provost James Holloway, and from UNM Health Sciences, Dr. Douglas Ziedonis, who will do our wrap up, and then we'll have the reception.
So good afternoon. Thanks for staying till the very end. And so Doug and I are going to just spend a couple of minutes reflecting on what we heard during the day, and then also bring the whole audience here in for kind of a wrap up, your sense of a wrap up, your big takeaways from the day as well. And so let me start by thanking you all for being here. And I'll kick this off, and then we'll bring Doug in. I have my hymnal. Hopefully all of you have your hymnals. Open to page 32. We're going to sing, never mind. But I've kept my notes in this. And I have a lot of notes, and I'm just going to pull out one item to start with. There was a real theme that kept coming up over and over, and I counted about 3-4 themes that kept coming up over and over, but this one came up a lot. And it was about, it came in 2 versions. One version was, we don't have a narrative about New Mexico. We don't have a marketing campaign for economic development. We have a marketing campaign for tourism. We don't have a marketing campaign for economic development. We don't brag about what we have achieved. We brag about what we have. We brag about the beautiful landscape. We brag about the beautiful culture, but we don't brag about what we have achieved in the economic development state. Of the state. The other version of this was, we don't have a vision. We don't have a vision for what we want to be best at. I think what Adam Hammer put it as exactly that. What should New Mexico lead on? What should be our one thing? So we don't have a vision. We don't have a marketing campaign around economic development. Now, whether we need one or not was challenged a few minutes ago. Maybe we don't need that. Maybe we should just kind of think about what we're doing and our accomplishments. I think Nora answered that pretty well. She said yes, and. Yes, we should do all that we do internally. We should be proud of our own accomplishments. But there's value in making ourselves known to the outside. But frankly, there's value in making ourselves known internally as well. Because within this, we also heard the theme of silos. We heard it a lot. Different words we used. I loved the word de-siloing, but we heard about silos a lot, and our inability to actually act as a common group. For me, there's always an interesting part of that. So when the state came out with their economic development plan a couple of years ago, I was super excited. So my day job is running kind of academics and research at the University of New Mexico. State came out with their economic development plan. They said 9 things to me. They said aerospace, biomedical, biosciences. They said cyber. I've learned now we say advanced computing. So advanced computing. They said green energy, intelligent manufacturing, value-added agriculture, global trade, outdoor recreation, film and TV. I was excited about that because it was like, okay, that's what I'm going to follow. That's my marching orders. And so we've created the Quantum New Mexico Institute because that advanced computing is something that we as a university can contribute to. We created a new institute called ARID, Accelerating Innovations in Drylands, because our ag economy, our tourist economy, much of our economy is built on how well we can manage this semi-arid environment. And so we built an institute around that. We did that because of those economic development goals for the state. But now I learned not everybody's following those, not everybody's interested in those. We haven't really come together as a community and said, yeah, those are the things we want to be good at. And so for me, this theme about lack of vision, lack of a marketing plan, lack of clarity about what we want to say we're good at was really important today. That really struck me because there is value in creating that, But as part of that, there's value in creating some kind of internal consensus, because I don't think we have that. We have a rural versus urban divide in what we think is important. Do we care about growth businesses or non-growth businesses? By the way, we can care about both, but we haven't really had the conversation in any forum in the state that leads to a clear consensus. When the people in this room clearly don't have a consensus, it's clear that that consensus hasn't been built anywhere. I'm still going with the 9 things that EDD said, because at least it's something I can follow. But for me, this is a big takeaway from today, creating a sense of collaboration, consensus, community and transparency around some fixed vision, and that we can follow through leadership transitions. Because this isn't something to be done in a 4-year election cycle. So we also need to build that consensus in a way that it in fact moves through leadership transitions of all kinds. And so I'll stop there as my big takeaway and hand it over to Doug.
Great, thank you. And really all of you get an extra star for staying as long as you did. For me, it was a magical day with the storytelling, whether it was poetry or scientific thought or business thought. Really just hearing all the different voices, I think, is so important for what we're doing. I want to thank everyone who put this together. Let's give them a hand who set it up. And really all of you who are still here. I came away with a lot of hope. There are real issues that we have to address. When I put my health and health science lens on, I think about this whole state, and we talked a lot about the 40%, and that 40% is probably on Medicaid, and that 40% has the impact of social determinants of health with poor education, economy, transportation, lack of access to the internet, and we can go through the list. And so the idea today was a good one for me to think about, because I tend to think about bioscience and health services. What are we doing with the 40%? How could we help them? I really appreciated the data on immigrants and how they had an impact on creating 1/3 of the businesses, and so many of them were heading up companies. So really appreciated that. So much pride in the room, people sharing about their stories, all the assets, our diversity, our history, our culture, and to Provost Holloway's points of how we break down silos, how we work together, having that shared plan, the alignment, the partnership. And I thought it was also important, the issue of trust, and how that came up many times in the conversations. And that will be one of the major ways, because everybody wants to do well. We think everybody has good intentions and are trying to do well. So I really thought that was an important thing. The final of the call to action was great to have our executive and legislative branch leaders here who were able to express themselves and talk about the ROI they would like, and how do we move the needle, and what are we going to do now, not just the how, and getting focused on the details. But when I come through the university lens, I loved the speaker talking about, hey, how do we get the entrepreneurial lens to look at social problems? And I have a group of folks that think about that every day, but it would be great to get all the other ideas from this crowd or other crowds in the future. A little plug for UNM. We have our UNM 2040 strategic plan. All you got to do is put in your Google search UNM 2040. Thank you, President Stokes, who's up front. Our EVP, Teresa Constantinidis, our chair of the Regents, Kim Sanchez-Rael. Thank you all for being here. We also have a UNM Health, where we have a particular priority area on economic development. So again, as we're looking for partnerships and alignment, I'd love people to be able to see that. Thanks, Ryan Cangliosi, for your leadership in that topic. We have the students as a university. So a lot of you said, hey, I wish I had students. And so that means, how do we create the linkages? Because some of it was, our students don't think they have a job to go to, and the jobs don't think they have the students or the graduates to come to them. So how do we create those linkages and partnerships? What structural entity could help us in a better way? Workforce was a big topic today, and it is for all of us. In health, UNM, 70% of the nurses, 80% of the pharmacists, 50% of the doctors. So we're thinking all the time about how our graduates stay in the state and how they help the economy, because economies don't grow if you don't have good health. You're not going to have businesses who are going to want to work here if we don't have good health. The idea of continuous long-term learning, that's something we think about in the university. As a healthcare professional, we're always thinking we got to do this throughout our whole career. A plug to Project Echo. Hopefully everyone in the room knows. I love the comment by our tech folks. How do we take tech ideas and marry them to customer use cases? And that's not a way I talk, but it was a way to think about Project Echo to me, whether it's advancing education, whether it's the problem that clinicians out in Clovis haven't been trained on how to treat hepatitis, and we can give them that kind of education. But that idea of Echo started when Zoom was just kicking off. And Sanjeev calls up the Zoom guy and says, hey, can we partner? And that now with COVID, what a big deal to all go on Zoom together. But back then, that was a innovation. We have our Ascend program, the Rainforest program. We're trying to train faculty. They're good at coming up with scientific ideas, but how do you translate it? And that was another word that was used a lot. Benyu Bio's in the room, the flow cytometry program that came out of UNM's science that went over to Rainforest to learn how to transfer out, and now it's a company and doing great. And circular genomics, it's work. I think about how internally for us, business, engineering, health, and others work together to look at helping our students. I did like the issue of reputation, branding, great place to live. All of us, whether you want to retain people or recruit people, this is a great place to be. And how do we put that and make sure, because we're all trying to sell the same story. So how do we sell the story together on that? So as far as next steps, I wish we had another half day so we could hear all your ideas on what would be the next steps. So networking is important. Is there a way to create a dashboard to track so that when we meet in a year from now, we'll have a sense of what were we trying to improve and did we work on it? Workforce will be a critical issue, and then I'll have one last plug. A lot of what we talked about for the bioscience or certain types of technology, not the 40% group, requires research. And as a state, are we going to fund hard money for the research faculty? The way that other systems like the University of California have said, we got to grow our economy. Research is important. Let's put some dollars into the startup called faculty who have these ideas and give them a chance, a runway, either prove they can do it or not. So thank you all, and I think we're now shifting to questions.
Yep, and so we'd really like to hear from all of you what your key takeaways from today are. Before we do that, there's one thing I really wanted to plug, and Lieutenant Governor mentioned this. This is the place where the Office of Entrepreneurship was born. So a year ago, we had this meeting, and in the room were a lot of folks who were listening to the discussion then, which was really focused on startup and a startup culture. And the idea was pitched, let's create an Office of Entrepreneurship. And people in this room took that and ran with it, took it to the legislature, got it moved into through the process to the point where now that office exists, and the Lieutenant Governor acknowledged that. So I want to preface this conversation with that reminder. Things have come out of this room that really have made a difference for the state. So really, we'd like to hear from all of you what your key takeaways from today might be. Yeah.
What is said, but I'm also intrigued with what is not said. And what I heard was an awful lot of support organizations, support resources, etc. What I didn't hear emphasized, and I know it exists, is where is the driving force? It's called the entrepreneur, he or she by themselves. The entrepreneur is the engine that pulls the train. It's the engine in the automobile. The most beautiful automobile in the world doesn't work without the engine. What we need is support for entrepreneurs. And UNM has some programs to start entrepreneurs as students. And there are other organizations that do some of that. Where I was listening for, where is the support for the entrepreneurs? Why? We all know, and I don't know, you can pick your own data, but one of the SBA figures is that 80% of us businesses, small businesses, are out of business in 5 years. What are we doing to support and grow, to generate, and then support and grow entrepreneurs? If they're the main force, if they're the engine, what are we doing about the entrepreneur?
Thank you. Lisa, did you want to?
So I think one of the takeaways I got from today, and something I've believed for some time, is that we're really good at starting businesses here in New Mexico of all types, right? As you mentioned, a number of them fail, and we do expect some percentage of them to fail. That's normal. We want to do the best we can to retain and grow here. I think that's the missing component, and maybe one of our takeaways today is that, yeah, we are good at starting business. How can we help them grow? And if we can take that as one of our messages to the state, to other organizations that can help with that, I think we'll have done a lot today.
Yeah, and I certainly agree with Lisa, and I think there was a theme on this today. It had different elements from different speakers. Some noted the difficulty of finding that venture capital in the $5 to $10 million range. Others, there were actually sets of frictions that were discussed, the land use limits, zoning issues, permitting, licensing, tax structures, all of which are the systems that cause people to, even when they start things here, then move away, or in some cases cause people not to start things here. I've had that conversations with New Mexicans who wanted to return and start a business here and decided, Oklahoma was easier. So that's certainly a challenge. Other takeaways?
I was just going to thank you for that comment, because it is at the cornerstone here for the entrepreneurs. And I also appreciated the scaling up from a company that's 20 to go higher. And that might require a different type of support than the one that's going from 0 to 20. We have a National Institute of Health grant called Ascend, where we're trying to help the faculty who are comfortable with creating the discovery. We just had a discovery that came out on a vaccine that will reduce LDL levels, reducing cholesterol. Here at UNM, it's gotten national, international attention. That is something that's just waiting to pop out. The faculty, they know what they're good at, and they're not good at running a company. They don't know how to do the translation, and that's what we have a system for. But hopefully also with the state, they're not up here to answer your question, but whether you could leverage Project Echo also. How do we create networks and communities?
Comments from others?
Yes, thank you. I like the comments that are made here with the last two commentators. You're talking my talk, and that is I'm with the MBDA, Minority Business Development Agency, and if we reflect on how much government federal spend comes into New Mexico in fiscal year 2023, ending in September, it's about $150 billion. A lot of money, a lot of money. And Richard was talking earlier up here on the panel about how do we plug into that? How do we make that happen? How do we spread that? I guess the key point there is, what's the percentage of those dollars that are gained by New Mexican companies, organic companies, companies that are here, versus what percentage comes in? And that comes in usually goes back out. They bring their own contractors, et cetera. How do we get that money to stay here? We're working on a program now. I've mined government data. We're separating it by NAICS numbers, industry numbers. We're separating it by company sizes. And we've talked to some quasi-sponsors and building cohorts. The objective is, let's take the smaller companies that come through our doors, the Hispano Chamber, MBDA, SBDC. Let's begin to help them build and facilitate a process where small companies team up with medium companies team up with larger prime contractors, and so that these contracts that are given to the state then begin to share amongst a larger portion of New Mexico growing companies. So this is something we're starting. We're building cohorts in this year, 2024. We've mined the data. We'll be coming up with some segmentation on that. The Minority Business Development Agency at the Hispano Chamber, anyone is welcome to connect with us. We're looking for participants in all these projects, and it begins tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Others? Yeah, over here.
So I've been in this entrepreneurial scene for a few decades now, and one of the things that I've thought about for a long time is, and in the context of Rainforest and our other commercialization organizations at the labs, if we put as many dollars into executive recruitment firms as we put into IP attorneys, I think that we could actually create the matches and the teams that could be transformational for this economy. So I think that the translation, like if we thought about this opportunity the way an executive search firm thinks, that we could actually have a different way of making these opportunities come together into scalable companies. So just wanted to throw that out there, because we do spend a lot of money on IP attorneys, which is only one part of the equation in commercialization. There's a whole other part of the equation that we don't invest in at all. And the access to capital is a third arm, but there's this matchmaking piece that we really don't invest in.
Good observation. Thank you. And over here.
Thanks. I'm the interim dean at Anderson School of Management, and so I wanted to add to the narrative and talk briefly about the engine that you mentioned. So Anderson School of Management graduates 70% of our students as underrepresented minorities. I think that is just a flag to wave. That's fantastic. The other thing in speaking to the engine is we have 4 different student competitions, some of those done in conjunction with the Rainforest. So we have a pitch competition, we have a Tech Navigator Challenge, and the Tech Navigator Challenge, we actually have the students work with coaches as it's a couple of week project where they produce their pitch. We have a pitch deck competition, and we have a global scaling challenge where we work with local companies that present a plan or a problem of how they're going to scale their work. And then we have universities from across the globe participate in that, work with those companies to come up with plans to scale them.
Thank you.
I think UNM does an outstanding job. I've got my MBA from UNM, but they do an outstanding job in birthing the entrepreneur. My question is, what are we doing to support the entrepreneur after they leave the university? Is the university doing anything beyond that to support them? Do they need to? Do they want to? I don't know. But where does the entrepreneur get their support as an individual? I know there's a lot of stuff out there that they have to go find on their own. How do we support those entrepreneurs to assure increased success and decreased failures?
So I think the framing of the question that you've just asked is really good. I'll plug Anderson a little bit. That, for example, have the Parker Family Business Center, which is focused on helping small businesses succeed and thrive. So there are lots of pieces here across New Mexico. I think that's one of the things you see from everybody in this room. Everybody in the room has a piece. What we haven't really done very well at is bring it all together as a system. It's not really clear, to me at least, who thinks of that as, who wakes up every day and thinks about that, who thinks of that as their job. Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Great job summarizing, both of you. Thank you so much. What a great day. Congratulations, Lisa. I'm an economic developer in New Mexico, have worked rural and urban, currently now representing in Sandoval County, Sandoval Economic Alliance, a nonprofit organization. And so first and foremost, have worked with the New Mexico Economic Development Department for 20 plus years, just as a resource to the economic development community and to communities. Within the last 2 years, and I remember when they established the regional rep program so that they would have representatives out in all of the communities. Recently, in the last year or two, they doubled those numbers so that each region has 2 regional reps. And so within my organization, we're seeing, and what's great, we're seeing a lot of entrepreneurs and startup companies coming through our doors. And so what we do is we work really closely with our regional rep from NMEDD. And then between us, we know the various resources. So the SBDCs, West, the various entities that are available. And what I've seen that's just really great is then trying to connect that community. And just to kind of share with you, Vic, I just thought you'd be interested. So really then providing those connectors, half the time, you know, you don't know if it's gonna gel, if there's gonna be any connectivity. But then all of a sudden, a lighting company from Rio Rancho is touring an aviation company from Rio Rancho. So next thing you know, the aviation company is saying, we're replacing all our LED lighting. So the architecturally structured lighting company is now having the opportunity to work closely with the aviation company. You know, an introduction and connection, they're all very busy running their companies. And so those kind of facilitated, you know, networking just isn't a strong enough word. You know, we have created this value add network so that people can really find those opportunities, get out of the office or get out of their desk. But when you're running your company, you don't really have the opportunity always to get out of your office and go meet with other CEOs. So I just wanted to share there are a lot of great resources. And you're right, sometimes you get to that point where you're like, okay, we've referred them here, we've referred them there. And so trying to find exactly that right person, right entity to help them, but then just to let them know, again, my colleague from EDD, we have a couple of startups that are early on biotech companies, one that's rocking and rolling, a couple that still come back to us like, you know, once a month or so, give us updates, we give them updates. So we all then in the economic development community really become, you know, their advocates and their PR and their marketing arm. So I just wanted to share a little bit and then trying to make those connections, and whether it's with UNM, CNM, whatever entities. One of our great companies, biotech companies in Rio Rancho was really excited. We found and saw that EDD had one of their the science and tech grants coming out. So he was one of the recipients of that grant, Q Biotech. So I reached out to him right away and said, hey, congratulations, that's awesome. And he said, thank you so much. Now I can pay for my patent attorney. So I said, oh, I know a patent attorney from when I was at the New Mexico Technology Council. Would you like me to make that introduction? And so what we've really rephrased that program into in our organization is called microeconomic gardening. So where it's not a distinctive, like the National Economic Gardening Program, but it's really dependent on the plan for each company is dependent on what their needs are. And so it started off with him needing lab space and then needing insurance for his company and then needing, you know, starting to look at financing and grants and a patent attorney. So there are a lot of us economic developers out there kind of, you know, I think under the radar that possibly that are working closely with a lot of companies. And it's really exciting because seeing so many of our local existing companies adding employees continually using the JTIP program and using LIDA. So there you go. There's my perspective, and just wanted to share with everybody.
No, I appreciate that, and that's incredibly important work that the various economic development agencies do across the state. This does touch on one of the themes that came across during the day, which is where do we celebrate that? Because as you point out, the companies themselves, they're busy. They got to go run their companies, but when you have those kinds of successes, how do we celebrate those? Where do we hear about those so that in fact folks know? There are paths to success here, even if we don't immediately see them. We need to make those paths visible. We have time for one last brief comment.
We'll go over a minute.
Hi, my name is Darius Padilla. I've been here all day. I think I came in hoping to learn more about opportunities for entrepreneurs. So I've been sole proprietor, self-employed this is going to be my 5th year. I didn't really hear a whole lot as far as small business owners, as far as things that maybe could apply directly to me. So I don't know if I really have a whole lot to share, but I know one thing that I can share is a nonprofit that helped me a lot was New Mexico Community Capital, and they work specifically with Native entrepreneurs. So when I first met them was back in 2019. They helped me basically start my business. They're the first people to ever call me an entrepreneur. Before that, I just considered myself like a guy who made jewelry and was trying to make money. I left the Forest Service. I'd been with them for 11 years, and I really didn't know what I was going to do. But yeah, these guys helped me a lot. And I really liked the gentleman's comment about what he said about entrepreneurs are the engines. The engine of the whole entire system. Yeah, so I don't know, I guess moving forward, maybe one thing I would have liked to have heard more was maybe more about concerning just the sole proprietors, the people that are just starting out, like where do we get our resources? What can be offered for us? Like what is there out there? I'm very fortunate to be Native American and to be able to collaborate with NMCC, but I have a lot of friends that aren't. And they don't really know where to go and what to do to help their businesses grow. Yeah, so I don't know. That's not really a question. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
I appreciate that, and I think you very strongly make several of the points that folks have been touching on this afternoon. So thank you. Was there one more? I would never go over, but Doug said go over, and we've gone over. Yes.
Actually, it's called Smart Tribe Technology. What we're doing is we're going to be trying to bring manufacturing and employ the natives there. And so it's been a big project I've been working on probably the past year, and I've actually had a lot of success with the different organizations here, working with them and being referred to different people. So my experience since I've moved here about 3 months ago from Los Angeles has been great. It's been really easy. I feel like I've just been like, everybody's been helping out, and it's been awesome. So like I said, in my experience, I think we're good. I feel like an entrepreneur will find a way to get through the problems. And so that's what I did. I just went around, started talking to people, started meeting people, and that's pretty much what happened. And we're almost up to production. I would say about 4 more months, we're going to be starting up. So yeah, really excited. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so we have one last order of business, and that's to turn the whole thing back over to Lisa to bring us home.